when the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality. Open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the book club by DLC.
Well, hello there, book clubbers. We're back. We took a little week off. Apologies for that, but we're back on the horse, ready to dig more into Midnight Tides. I'm Jeff Kanata. I'm here with Lana Bashinsky. Hi, Lana.
Hello and good morning. Ooh, I am so excited to talk about these chapters. You know, I feel it when I look in the Discord and in the comments, and I can feel that people want us to talk about it. But if it's any consolation, it pains us too to have to wait.
Yes, indeed it does. Indeed it does. And we are endeavoring not to let that happen, but sometimes schedules just get crazy, and that's what happened last week. Thank you for bearing with us with all of that. I got to say that, there's a commenter that goes into the YouTube every single week and says, yes, you've finally gotten to my favorite chapters in the entire series. And I'm kind of feeling like that this week. I feel like we got to some of my favorite chapters in the entire series.
Oh.
I've never read the series, but I mean, I just feel like these chapters were just so much fun. I very much enjoyed them. But we always start the show with a non-spoiler topic so that folks that maybe not be caught up all the way with where we are reading, which is, by the way, chapters 2 and 3 for Midnight Tides, we can still hang out and talk about books. And we got a fun topic sent to us at dlcfeedback@gmail.com. If you have ideas for non-spoiler topics to send in, please don't hesitate. It's a blast when we get suggestions from you, our viewers, listeners. This comes from Sarah. Sarah writes in and says, I had an idea for your non-spoiler intro topic. What would you want as your Malazan army nickname? Or, more in the spirit of the books, what nicknames would you give each other? My husband and I are big fans of the show. Thank you so much for all the fun. Thank you, Sarah, for writing in. This is an awesome, awesome idea. Now, just to be clear, just to be completely, completely open about how you would choose this. The Malazan army, we know from the previous novels, this is non-spoiler, but they all have fun, usually single word nicknames that can be kind of on the nose about the kind of person they are. We're talking about Squint is the guy who is good at shooting arrows from far away. Fiddler, is the guy who had a literally hung out with a violin all the time. They're nicknames that you earn by, sometimes they're a little insulting, sometimes they're a little ironic. But fun, usually single word nicknames. So that is our template for how we're going to do this. And I think it would be a great idea to give each other the nickname.
I agree. And I also want to be transparent in that I can't read the email. So Jeff has like some kind of head start on me. I don't know when the email was received, but I've just been thinking about it for basically the last 5 minutes or so.
I sprang it on you. I apologize.
No apologies necessary, but I am going to go first because yours is probably going to be way better than mine. But I do feel like even though I can't find trying to find the exact right word, I feel like I'm going to think about it. And the next episode, I'll be like, here's the exact perfect word for that. But there's like two, I think, very obvious things that come to mind when I think about you, Jeff Kanata. And one of them is the energy that you bring to like every interaction that we have, because 90% of them are through the podcast that we do. But the bigger one is like your general positive demeanor. I feel like if we were out like in battle. You would be finding positive things. You'd be finding things to love. You would have your favorite. You'd be researching all the different possible crossbows you could be using. And you selected the right one. And so somewhere between positivity, like if I had to like spin
Guys,
like
have you seen this sunset? It's delightful. That's blood. That's blood raining from the sky, you moron. Keep fighting.
So if I had to like spin like the positive version of the name for you, which I would, it would be something about that positivity, or like likely I feel like I could imagine you smiling a lot through it all, like trying to bring people together. So it would either be something like super on the nose, like smile, or something less obvious, like beam, like you're like a radiant sort of beam
like
of positivity. Beam. You're a beaming smile, positive guy.
I like beams. I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's really delightful. I think it would be awesome to have the audience throw out ones for us too.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
So the other one I would do if I had to spin it into the other side that might come first, it would probably be choosy. Because you take a long time to think. You're doing all the research.
Choosy.
Took you 10 years to get into Malazan because you're like pouring through Goodreads to find all the like which fantasy book is the next most optimal fantasy book for you to read for your lifestyle. My second choice would be choosy.
That's good, man. See, yours are great. You did them in 2 seconds. Now the bar is raised. You're like, oh, you had weeks to think of yours. I was, you're an artist. You're an amazing artist. So I was the first one that came to my mind was Sketch.
Ooh,
that seems like a cool nickname, like Sketch or Sketcher. And you could constantly be explaining to people, it's not about my shoes. I don't even wear Skechers. That's not how I got it. That's not it. Or like charcoal would be a cool one, because you do good charcoal drawings.
I like that.
But I like the idea of one that's more about your personality. You could be like, I was going to say Quick, but we already have Quick Ben. We can't have it. The problem is there's so many that are already good ones. Are taken. Yeah. Because you're so fast on your feet and you're a fast reader. I don't know. There's something like alacrity. I don't know.
I like it. I take it. I'll take Sketch. I take charcoal.
Yeah. I like Sketch or Sketcher. I think those are good.
I like that too.
That's fun little exercise. And we would love to be nicknamed by you out there watching. If you have good, I don't know, old Beardy. It could be. I don't know. Could be. What would you give yourself, Lana? Would you give yourself one?
See, that's where like
that's harder, I would like. Right?
What would I be? This is where I would be choosy. I'd be min-max. What is the best?
Oh, that's good.
What's the best possible name that I could give myself that would be exactly precisely both like either comical or powerful or like, there's like a million different things I would try to consider to like perfect it. So probably just min-max.
I think min-max is excellent. I like that. I was thinking because, I basically talk for a living. I could be like, Speaks.
I really like Speaks. That guy. Yeah, well, he speaks. All right.
Speaks. What does he do? I know you won't shut up, that guy. Anyway, wonderful topic sent in by Sarah. Thank you again. If you'd like to suggest topics, send them to dlcfeedback@gmail.com or post them in our Discord, which is 5x5DLC on Discord, the book club section therein. All right, let's jump in because we got a lot to talk about. These 2 chapters are jam-packed. So spoilers starting now for chapters 2 and 3 of Midnight Tides by Steven Erikson. It's a remarkable thing, Lana, to be in the 5th novel of a series, and it feels like we're in a completely new, we are in a new book, but it feels like we're in a completely new book. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean. They're like the moment of being like, have I met this person before? Do I know this yet? No, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about anything.
And of these people, and there's 40 new people, and they're all in a new culture and a new land.
Multiple new
new
cultures and new lands. 3 new cultures and lands, if not more, because of spirits.
Yeah,
Yeah, lots,
incredible. And
lots.
I find it thrilling. It is an amazing thing to be this deep in a series and just completely fresh location, people, customs,
Mhm.
interactions, titles of, it's just wild. So anyway, the first thing that we are introduced to, the first person we are introduced to in chapter 2 of Midnight Tides is Saren Pedak, who
Mhm.
is an acquitter, which is basically a person that is allowed to
Is it an acquitter or an
acquitor.
acquitor?
I don't know. Do they acquit themselves of this? I don't know. A
I
quitter?
don't know. I looked it up.
Don't be a quitter.
Don't be a quitter. Don't be a quitter. I couldn't tell because I looked up a quitter, and I was like, "Isn't that a word?" And then my Kindle said nay.
It is nay? Oh,
Yeah.
maybe acquitor. Acquitor sounds fun.
Because there's a lot of titles.
Yeah,
and so
there is.
being like, "Oh, a quitter Saren," sounded weirder to me than the acquitor. Like she's the
All right.
person who's doing the thing.
I like it. I like acquitor.
Maybe it's too hoity-toity, but I'm into it.
I add the toit to the hoit. I love it. She is allowed to travel into Edur territory to bring merchants into Edur territory, and she has been contracted by Buruk the Pale, and this is a 10-year contract, of which she has already accomplished 6 years. And they're heading into Edur territory with a bunch of Narek tribesmen who are traveling through this cold territory, working the wagons. Already, I thought, really cool texture of this, this sort of habitual work routine. Like I feel like I'm in the groove already, understanding just the sort of methodology of how these cultures interact with each other. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Like from like the different cultures, like doing the different jobs to like her immediate sort of dismissal of Baruch the Pale, who obviously sucks.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
coming out of the wagon being like, wow, well, don't you pose an imposing figure on the I'll try and retain that in my brain forever. And he's like, anyway, everybody do like places, do your things. And she's like, ugh, like already walks away.
Right.
Like just getting
6
away
years
from
of this
guy.
a-hole.
4 years left, 4 years left, 4 years left.
Yeah. But awesome. And then they arrive at this. I mean, they see these cool carvings of Father Shadow and all this kind of place that they've been through many, many times. And she walks over to this incredible, I think it's obsidian wall that is kind of translucent, and you can see figures moving behind it,
or like some kind of shapes. My impression is she walks down this path and there's like the shapes of what are like 2 giant boats, if I recall, that are like made out of built rock, but people have carved like Father Shadow into the prow. I imagine like one of those mermaids at the front there.
Totally.
And then the rock, she like takes off her glove and she's discovered that it has like either like healing properties or just heat. I can't quite tell if it's like actually healing or if it's just the warmth, but she like pontificates for a while about like what those shapes could be. Is it like the shapes of the old Hyroth warriors that are behind there? Who knows? But she puts her face on it, and so it has like a time with this wall.
So rad.
Awesome.
I did get the sense that she's actually healing, and that's like that's her secret, is that she's able to touch that and heal herself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they don't, whatever is back there, if it's actually something physical that's back there, doesn't see her, but she has this sense that they're kind of lost or trapped or kind of held in this timeless place behind the rock. It's like, I don't know if we're going to ever return to that, but what an amazing image to just start this chapter with. I just thought it was so cool. I don't know if it has deeper meaning or if it's just this kind of, texture, this.
Yeah, that was one of those things that I was like, does it have anything? Well, not yet.
Right.
And I just assumed that this will be something.
It may.
Who knows?
I totally could see it being
could be nothing
that we don't ever even talk about again too. Yeah. It's just, but maybe. So then Hull Bedict shows up, strapping lad who we learn some really interesting things about Hull's backstory. Hull was appointed sentinel by King Discanar, and
who's the Lothari king?
What's that?
Who's the Lothari king?
Yes, the Lothari king. No. Yes.
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 Yeah.
Right. And was sent to make contact to investigate the sort of the tribes people that are in the surrounding areas, and he sort of made first contact. Yeah, for science, right? Yeah, for a completely positive reasons. Yeah. And so he thought he was doing this very noble act of making contact with these peoples and learning about them and investigating their culture. He brought back all this info, and they're like, sweet, thanks for all the things we can use to exploit them and subjugate them and drive them out of existence and murder all of them.
So cool.
So cool. I mean, it's an amazing concept of how he was used. So he feels this enormous guilt for basically wiping out 3 cultures or driving them near extinction. Some of the cultures are still are more prominent than others still, but all of them have been driven into destitution and just completely subjugated and nearly destroyed.
Yeah.
So he has this massive guilt, and he decides to flee into the mountains and isolate himself and run away and kind of live with his guilt.
Yeah,
and evidently Saren Pedak went and pulled him back from that.
Yeah.
And also it sounds like they got funky.
That's what my understanding as well. She's like, and then also, because he's like holding out his hands to the fire, and she's like, they look rough, but I think they're softer than they look. I
remember them being soft. Yeah. Yeah. I was like,
but
Saren.
the what's his face? Hull set there's like the King's Reed, which I guess is like, the symbol. It's like your way of showing that you're the king's guy, you're the king's man. He like sent it back with one of the tribesmen before he left, which was like a sign to the Lothari that he like betrayed them. Like they took it personally, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, but he evidently is, super hot, giant, muscular, young, awesome dude. And he was it was 12 years ago that he went and destroyed the cult, or got the information that led to the destruction of the cultures. And then 8 years ago, Saren was like, "Hey, buddy, you're hot."
Oh yeah, and then the piece that I was meaning to say is not even like, "Hey, buddy, you're hot." I think because of the way that he connected with the cultures. I mean, even his intro as he walks through, the Narek people who are sleeping, they like worship him.
Yeah.
So, and that I think is like an interesting detail. He was the person who was responsible for getting these tribes obliterated, but the way he made connections with them was so powerful that he's still like this honored figure among them, which like the emotional turmoil that men must feel is very, very intense.
What a cool detail. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm glad you brought that up. That it totally accentuates that guilt, right? Because they think you're the bee's knees, and you're like, I'm the reason that you're going through all this hardship. Just an awesome detail, and I think really galvanizes that character of Hulbedic so quickly. It's so clear to me who he is and the burdens that he still carries.
Yes.
But he is now going to attend this great meeting that's happening between the Edur and the Lothari. And I think that's kind of a chaos agent, right? They don't know what to make of Hulbedic being part of this. So Niphidos, the first eunuch, and Prince Quilas
Mm-hmm.
will lead the delegation
From Lothari.
for the Lothari. Yeah. But Buruk evidently has these secrets that he's bringing with him. We don't know anything about those yet.
This, other than the fact that they're stressing him out.
Yes.
So apparently he's always been like a drunk. He's always just, tipping the bottle every night, but he's added white nectar to it, which is like a potent drug. And so the mix of them, something about the instructions that he has is driving him to, self-medicate in a more dangerous way, according to Saren.
Yes. So we're sort of building to this great meeting. We know from the previous chapter, a bunch of SEALs got killed.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. There's tensions. There's it could lead to war, but we're trying to have this great meeting. We're trying to keep it cool, keep it not hostile.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Now, next scene. There's another Bedict brother, Tehol. Tehol? This scene is one of my favorites in the series.
I love everything that Tehol is, everything that happens.
Yeah.
The silliness of the outfit, like everything is so, and like such stark contrast. I mean, we see, not to jump ahead, we see all three of these brothers back to back to back, basically, right?
Yes.
And like, how different are these bros, bro?
Yeah.
It's so great.
It's so funny, that one part where we finally get to Briss. And they're like, yeah, your brother's like, I don't understand any of my brothers.
And then he's like, well, maybe I understand the one brother, but I definitely don't understand the other.
I get Hull, I guess. I kind of get what he's doing, but Tehol, man, oh, dude, I have no idea about that
he
guy.
Is.
Yeah.
So he's in his like hovel on his bed on the roof with like his buddy / servant Bug is his name,
Bug,
who's like presently like knitting him a shirt. And then he's like, oh, you had some lady visitors today, and he's like, but time to get up and at 'em. And he is like was like planning on doing nothing, I know, being in his house, whatever. And Bug tells him about these visitors, and he's like, gotta get into town. But he like grabs the shirt that Bug's making. It's lopsided. And the conversation that Bug has, like, well, I haven't made you any pants yet. And Tehol just wraps the sheet around him a couple times, and he's like, totally good. We looking fine. And he's like, well, there's not even he's like, there's not even enough wool to like really make you a pair of pants. I could either make like one leg or like two, but they'll be really short. And he's like, how short? And he's like, pretty short. And he still chooses like one leg.
It's so great.
I would take 2 short legs versus one leg. Like, everything about it is so absurd and perfect. Ooh, I just love them.
It's delightful. You're so right. It's absurd and amazing and fun. And it just feels like we're in this completely different world. And man, when he's like, I'm hungry. He's like, well, why don't you cook something? He's like, should I make something that needs to be cooked, or just tastes better when it's cooked?
He's like,
either one, it's fine, it's cool, whatever you want to do. And he's like, well, we need some wood. He's like, I am not gonna eat wood.
It's like the fact that would be like where your brain would go to be like, okay, like just shows like the ridiculous suggestions that he must have constantly, that could ever be not a suggestion for how to cook the food, but something you might eat.
Well, then he's like, well, we don't have any wood. He's like, does your stool actually need 3 legs? Like, yes, that is the minimum number of legs for a stool. Yes, there's no such thing as a 2-legged stool.
And he's like, anyway, off to get the ladies. And he like goes down his ladder, and he realizes they've already burned all the rungs to the ladder, basically. Every 1 in 3 is left. Oh my gosh.
It's so brilliant. And then he gets to the floor and there's nothing. He's like, I really love my sparse aesthetic.
It's
Like
severe. It's severe. It's an intentional choice.
just the greatest scene. Just the most fun, delightful scene. And he's just walking out, not a care in the world, using his bed sheet as a skirt, shirtless. It's like,
No,
all right, I gotta.
He's wearing the shirt.
Is he wearing?
It's
Oh yeah,
he's
you're right.
wearing the
one
lopsided
arm
shirt.
is longer than the other. Yeah. And so goes and meets up with the ladies. Ladies are very underwhelmed at what they find because they've been searching for him.
The scene where he's like, I heard you were looking for the guy sleeping on his roof, and all of them are like,
we've made a terrible mistake.
No. This cannot.
It's so great. It's so great. These three like badass ladies that are clearly badass, just like warriors. One's got a shaved head. They're all like legs up on the table, awesome, just pounding brews, just sitting in the bar, like being awesome. And this goober walks in with this sheet around his waist and one sleeve longer than the other. And he's like, I'm the guy you're looking for.
I just love that they're like, and he's got this guy with like the lopsided arms, and he's like, it's the sleeves that are lopsided.
Yeah, my arms are the same length. Duh.
And she's like, cool it, Shand. Like, you don't have to sleep with him. And he's like, I'm crushed. And she's like, you would be. I'm like,
I know.
Girl. Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
It's so good. It's so good. And the best thing too is that he's such a disaster, right? And they want him because he's a financial genius.
He's a brilliant fraudster.
Yeah.
But he's
like Wolf of Wall Street, He's
yeah, but like an actually kind Wolf of Wall Street. So through this scene, I forget who Tehal talks to. He talks to like some guard or something on the way into the city. But he gets Shalas. But he gets it with these ladies, and they're like, we want you to help us, spin a dime into 10 million dimes, basically. Yeah. And they basically are blackmailing him because they know information about him. They have bought a residence in the town, and so they're like, we're not going to talk about it here, but we know your secrets. And he's like, what secrets? That I lost all my money? Everybody knows I've got nothing. And they're like, we know that you didn't. Shut up. And so they bring him back to their place. And as far as I can tell, what they've learned, what they know about Tehal through, they've just studied him. They don't like give up on their quest or whatever, is that he started with like no money. He spun it into 2 peaks, which is, as far as I can tell, like 2 million buckaroos.
Yeah.
And then claimed to have lost it all and has lived in such horrible squalor intentionally since then that everybody really believes him. They really believe that he's become bankrupt because he literally lost the money. But what I understand is that he either purchased an island, he has like saved some of those cultures that we thought Hull had given the king, the king had effectively obliterated by rescuing them and putting them on these islands that nobody would ever look at because who cares about these islands? And these women have found that out. So he is not just like a schemy Wolf of Wall Street. He's like the sheep in wolf's clothing of Wall Street.
He's like Robin Hood, He's stealing this money and helping these cultures that his brother basically is the reason they were wiped out.
Yes.
And interestingly, I think hasn't told his brother. Like, I don't understand why that would be. Like, we don't quite grok yet. At least I didn't grok why he wouldn't want Hull to know. And their threat is, we'll tell him. We'll tell Hull that you did this. It's like, well, wouldn't Hull be happy that
I feel like, I mean, if there is this misunderstanding between these brothers, to me, that's like, maybe he doesn't know that Hull was unaware of the king's intent.
Right.
So maybe he was like, Hull, maybe like, we have yet to see any of it, but the only thing I can sort of think of is that he thinks that Hull knew the king's intent made it so that these cultures were as able to be manipulated and I forget the word that you used, effectively conquered by the king and wiped out.
Right.
My impression would be, not my impression, but the thing that I can think of why he wouldn't tell Hull is if he thought Hull was in on it.
Interesting. Well, the women seem to think that if Hull finds out, Hull will kill Tehal. I don't know if that's accurate or if that's just what they believe, but that's what their threat is. Like, we'll tell Hull and he'll kill you.
Well, some people continue to refer to him as the Sentinel. And so
Right.
I think that some people don't have an understanding of what the relationship is, or
Right.
with absolutely no clues from the book, just like my own pontificating about it. Maybe people think that he gave back the reed as a ruse so that they could root out the rest of the cultures. Like maybe they think that he's still under the king's thumb. Maybe they think that it was his personal mission to do this. Like those are all the things that sort of swirl around in my mind when I think of like why he might not know and why Tehom might not want to tell him.
Love it. Love the dynamic already. And then we get our third brother. We're going him Bryce or Brees or Briss.
I was doing Briss.
Briss? Okay. Who is the one brother that seems to have his shit together. You know, he actually seems like he's got a lot of things going on. He is,
but the shit around him is not together.
True. Yeah. Oh, there's dysfunction all over the place, but he seems like he's moved up the ranks at least.
Mm-hmm.
He is Finad of the Royal Guard, which is basically like a captain of the guard. And he's also the king.
Oh, sorry.
He's also the king's champion. Two things. He's Finad and he's also the king's champion. So there's multiple Finads, but there's only one king's champion. Mm-hmm. And he became king's champion instead of some other people that wanted to be king's champion. So there's a little jealousy there.
A little spice in the air.
Yes. So he Briss meets with Niphidas, the first eunuch, who's like, hey, this great meeting's happening. I heard your brother Hull's coming. That seems weird.
Ruh-roh.
I'm a little worried about what he's going to do. And I also know that Baruch the Pale has some secret instructions that may conflict with the king's interests. So what are we going to do? We got to maybe you can help me out deflecting your brother away from this situation. So they're kind of scheming.
They're scheming, but it's also it's not that just that the instructions conflict the king's interests, but because of Baruch the Pale's situation, and I guess just because he's Lithari or because he's like one of the guys who's representing the Lithari at this great meeting, I guess, that people will assume that the instructions came from the king, right, even though they didn't. And so
and he's like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to mislead the people with my own instructions. I don't want Baruch the Pale to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Brees is like, I get it.
Yeah.
All
politics.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, well, exactly. But he's like, I don't know my brother. I don't know either of my brothers. We come to find out that's a lie. Like he thinks he does know Hull, but he's telling Niphidas he doesn't know him and it can't help. I don't know what's going on. Then we meet another amazing character, brand new character that I'm immediately in love with.
Yeah.
Kuru Khan,
yeah.
Who's Seda or Seda, which is basically means like high mage for this culture. And has stared into something called the empty hold, which evidently burned his eyes, hurt his eyesight. And so he's like invented spectacles for himself.
Well, I love this scene so much because like it burned his eyes magically, but apparently not physically. So he can't like magically heal himself, which would like make sense. Nobody's invented glasses because they're either their eyes are like fully not in their skulls anymore, or somebody can like heal them if they can't see.
Right.
I assume. And so him having like his sort of magic vision burned out of his eyes, but like there's still work. He just has like, -2, -32 or whatever.
I don't
know how class numbers work. the but he like makes glasses. He's like, I can see ya. It's just like such an interesting like nuance of magic
Yeah.
that we haven't seen before, and also just like never not be cute to have somebody be like, I made mistakes.
Yeah, well, he's also seems like a bit of a Looney Tune himself, like in a delightful way. Like the next time we see him, he's like dancing in the hallway, just like he just seems like a fun, kind of wacky character.
Yes.
He like pours this silver liquid, and he's like, "Oh, that's the perfect amount." All right, he drinks
I know.
it. It's like,
I was like, what is it? It never.
Yeah.
The fact that he's like doing it, I'm like, ooh, is this? I was like, is this how he's making the lenses? Is he going to use
Right.
this to like shave it off, and then he just drinks it? You're like, oh, okay, well,
All right, pal. I love it. Love it.
shot.
Totally. So then Brisk goes to the old throne room.
Seda says, well, first of all, he can like smell something's up. He's like, you were stressed out. Interesting, these things. He has like sort of present divination powers through his like stronger senses or whatever. He's like, come right back. Whenever you're going to go do something, come right on back.
Right.
And so we know we're going to see him again shortly.
Super cool that he's like Daredevil. He's got, he's like, and he's like, you're a swordsman. You get the fact that even though I got my sights back, it's still cool that I got the extra senses. Can't lose those. Really, really neat. So he goes to the throne room. Another new character, Preda Unatal Habaz.
This chapter was the first chapter where I kept having to go back because people will say their name or their title.
Yeah.
And I was like, was their name Preda? Or was their name? I had to go back a couple times and be like, okay,
is his name Finad?
I know. I was like, well, who? At some point they say Finad. I'm like, what? I thought it was Briss. Who's Finad? Is his name Finad? Yeah, this is the first chapter where I really had to like go through and make it all make sense.
I gotta say though, I love these titles. I think the titles are super cool, and I love that the culture has its own titles. It's, I will be completely honest. I read chapter 2 twice, and I'm glad I did. I like read it, and I got to the end, and I thought it was so awesome. I'm like, I know I missed stuff. I'm gonna read it again, and I literally just read chapter 2 immediately after finishing chapter 2, and it was the second read through was even more fun because I was like, okay, I'm grokking who everybody is and how they relate to each other already.
I also read both chapters twice this week because I'd read it for last week, and then my brain, she do not retain. I was like sitting there yesterday. I'm like, what do I remember? And I'm like, nothing. And so I reread them both.
So Unatal is like, hey, Briss, stand in the corner, pretend to be my guard, just chill. Don't be awesome. Try not to be awesome. It's difficult for you, but try. I'm going to have this meeting and you're just going to stand there. Be quiet.
Yeah.
And then a whole bunch of new people walk in. The Queen Janal, her son, Prince Quilas Discanar, who the prince feels like a real
pouty baby.
Wah,
cry more.
Right. But we know that the Queen is sort of the one that had the principal interest in the merchants that killed all those seals. So she's implicated in some of this nefarious behavior. She walks in. They have a couple of other people. The Chancellor is there. The Queen's first consort is there. And Prince Quilas's guardsman, Morach Navath, who could have been the champion, should have been the champion, but Brisk got it instead. So there's a little animosity there.
Was the Queen implicated in the instructions to Baruch the Pale?
I did not get that.
We don't know. Okay, just I wasn't sure.
I don't think we know anything about those instructions as of yet.
Okay.
At least that's my reading. But
I think you're right. I was just checking.
Yeah. But she's definitely up to some shady behavior. I get that sense. And she likes her son a little too much. He seems like a not nice person. He comes in, throws a temper tantrum, and says, "Why did you send this other Finad as part of the first eunuch's entourage?" I don't know any of that. Like, I don't even understand why he's mad, but he's mad. And
I think he wanted that. I think he wanted that guy for himself.
right. Yeah, he demanded that she send that Unatal send back this Finad Garen Eberict.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of new people introduced
Yeah.
right here. And she's like, I'm not gonna do that. I listen to the king. I listen to your dad, and that's the only person I listen to. Punk. And Morach is like, oh yeah, you're gonna say that? And behind it, Briss is like, swords out, faster than you could even blink. He's the coolest.
I love that he's like, you really gonna say that to me? And she's like, she puts her hand up, but not at Morach. That dude's 5 steps behind. She's like, just the fact that she would have her arm out and how impactful this moment. So it's just written so well. Because like Briss is never mentioned, which is great because we're like, he's fallen off the radar. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to with no notice because he showed up late to the throne room or whatever.
Yeah.
And she puts her hand up to stop him. And he was already like in murder mode. Like swords out. Nobody else's swords are even out of their scabbard yet. And he's like ready to cut throats. Ooh.
So good. He's the equivalent of the fastest gun in the West, right? He can get his sword out of the scabbard faster than anybody. He'll kill you before you even know it's coming. And it just immediately galvanizes him as this awesome force, this cool dude. Everybody knows it. And he's super dangerous. And you understand why she wanted him there. But like, and then after everybody leaves, she's like, thanks for not murdering him. He's like, I was definitely going to murder him. I'm sorry. I was going to murder him. She's like, I'm glad you didn't, because that would have been bad.
No, she's like, thinking about it, I really should have let you.
Yeah, but maybe you would have been good. Yeah. So then he walks back out, and Kurukan is out there dancing, waiting for him in the corridor, like, hee hee, woohoo. And Kurukan's like, hey, come with me. I want to show you this sick room that I've got down here. The tile room with all the tiles.
Is this not a tiny version of the big thing that they were walking through in the Azath house? Yeah.
Yeah. That's what my understanding was. It's like, because it even references the Azath hold, and they sort of worship the holds, which we know is a precursor to the houses. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff there that we're really close to understanding, but it hasn't been spelled out quite yet as to how the relationship of this entire culture relates to the Azath houses, because we're talking about holds, and they worship holds, and they're kind of there's a step missing there for me that I'm not quite sure yet, but I don't think we're supposed to understand quite yet.
Yeah, and I forget if it was in the mind of Briss in the throne room. There's a passage in this chapter, I'm pretty sure, that talks about like people building thrones and people should sit in the thrones.
Yes.
But often people build thrones and then nobody's sitting them. They're just thrown in a room. And why are we worshiping empty thrones? Yes. And then immediately it's like, look at these holds. And I'm like, isn't those all thrones that are empty? Like my brain's like connecting those little pieces.
Right, which
I don't know what it means.
We know is part of the plan of Kellanved and Dancer to occupy the thrones but not sit in them.
Yes.
So I think it's all
interweavy.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you.
I have nothing. I was just going to say, okay. Picturing this room that they walk into, I have a hard time picturing. My brain says they walk into like the equivalent of like Cerebro, where they're like on kind of like a thing.
Totally.
Okay, great.
Elevated bridge that's suspended from these chains, and they're like looking down on the floor, which is the swirl pattern of tiles.
Yes.
But I think the tiles, they like read the tiles as a form of divination.
Yeah.
And the tiles will reconstitute themselves or be in a different order depending on I don't know what. But he's like, they do this tile reading and they give you a ton of information, or Erikson gives you a ton of information that I don't understand at all.
I know.
He's like, the Azath hold, there's the Barrow tile is the first one. And that's weird because he's like, is it the first one or is it the last one? Because it's a spiral. It's like, oh, that seems very important, but I have no idea why. And then he's like, oh, there's a dragon tile I've literally never seen that in my lifetime. I'm like, oh, that sounds important too. I don't know why.
I was so tempted to. As many times in this book, I'm very tempted to like write something down on a Post-it to like have it here while we're talking. But I'm choosing not to engage with the books like that. But
Right.
I wanted to just like burn those tiles into my brain so that I could like find all these shout outs to them in the future. But
it
we'll
does
see.
feel like it's laying out things that will come to pass. There's an empty one. He's like, oh, that empty one seems important. And there's a white crow. I'm like, we already saw a white crow, and we saw the attack happen right after we saw the white crow. And there's an ice hold. I'm like, I know ice is a big deal. I know ice. So there's all these different tiles. And we also know that the Feather Witch reads tiles.
Yes.
So tiles is a whole thing.
Yeah.
And then we have this conversation about the first emperor, and that and Kurokan is like the first empire. We heard it was 7,000 years ago, but maybe we missed a couple of zeros. Could be even way, way, way older, order of magnitudes older.
Or way, way, way younger. I will say that the Seda says maybe we dropped a couple zeros, and then Briss goes, so 70,000 or 700? Like, it wasn't clear.
I think he meant or 700,000.
Oh, yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
I was like,
I thought it was either.
But he said dropped a couple zeros. Okay, yeah.
I think he means it's either 70,000 or 700,000 years old.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I'm aligned with that. So.
And there's this prophecy that the king who rules at the seventh closure, don't know what that is, will be transformed and become the first emperor reborn.
So I just want your thoughts on the phrase, the first emperor.
Yes.
My understanding was that Kellanved kind of was the first emperor in a way. But is he just the first Malazan emperor? I thought he we're in a new continent, et cetera, et cetera. But like when I hear the first emperor, I'm like, wasn't that Kellanved was the first person to like sort of brutally unite this area? And now he's seeking to be like the overall emperor as Shadow Throne.
I think he was an emperor of the
Malazan
head of
Emperor.
the Malazan Empire. But there's this thing called the First Empire. In fact, there's two things called the First Empire. Okay. There's the First Empire of the Talana Mas, yes, which is Tuul and his sister and all them. They're in the First Empire. That's different than the First Empire of humans, which is, I think, what we're talking about here. And we learned about the First Empire of the humans, which was named that after the Talana Mas. It was like named after the First Empire of Talana Mas. The First Empire that was founded in 7 cities was done so by the Nameless Ones. Yes. They guided it into being. And we have all of those heroes of the First Empire, which is Treach, Trake, Rilandaras or Rilandaris.
Yes.
Those are the first heroes of the First Empire.
Okay.
So I think that's what we're talking about. When we talk about First Emperor, it's the First Empire's emperor.
Okay, great. That I appreciate you jogging the old memory there.
Yeah. Anyway, so basically that scene ends with Briss saying, I think my brother Hull is going to kill Prince Quillis.
Yes.
Interesting.
And and this is what I thought was interesting, because he's like, I think he's going to kill Prince Quillis, because he gets to that not from the is it from just the tile reading, or it was like Seda's kind of like, think back to the thing that you just had. What just happened over there, and tell me what you saw in your heart.
Right.
And what I think is interesting, he's like, I think my brother's going to do this, but the Preda, whose name I immediately forget, but she was like, I should have just let you kill him.
Right.
So that doesn't seem like unaligned with the king's interests, at least, if the Preda serves the king.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was just Preda's trying
Or
to
maybe
look
she
out.
was just in a fit of pique and I should have let you kill him, but I don't know.
She seemed to me, I read that as her being like, yeah, you really would have killed him. And then she's like, it seemed like a
calculated.
thoughtful
Yeah.
moment, not like I should have let you do it. It seemed
interesting.
Like she was really pondering it. Anyway,
Yeah,
interesting.
I think we're still sort of, I think all the threads are still converging, at least in my mind. I don't exactly know everybody's machinations and even goals at this point. So, but I'm loving it. Like I love being in the dark about it and trying to piece it together. Yeah, it's so good. And I love that we're in this place of all of a sudden, these novels have been military conquests. They've been all these very visceral battles. And now we're in like
political intrigue,
backbiting, but also financial manipulation.
Yes.
It's just like such a different thing all of a sudden. And it's all done so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's super cool. I'm just loving this.
I will say also, maybe I'll save it till the end, but like there's a book, I think it was one of the first books I recommended when we did the recommendations in the past, that if you love Midnight Tides, I can't tell you enough. You gotta also read this other book. You'll love it. Anyway, I'll say it at the end.
Yeah, don't forget. So we're back with Tehol in the next scene. We kind of covered a lot of this already, but basically they step through all his financial accomplishments in the past, and like, we want you to do this. We want you to do this because we want to make 10 times what you made. We want to make.
I really bumped ahead earlier.
No, that's okay. It's okay. It's all part of the same thing.
Yeah.
But basically, we want to make so much money that we will actually buy all the islands, and not only buy all the islands, take so much money out of the economy that it crushes.
Just crumbles.
Lether.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would completely bankrupt the economy. It just sucks so much revenue out of the economy, and we'll hold it for ourselves. We won't reinvest it into this country's economy, that it literally will cause a collapse of the entire financial system. Pretty devious plan. And we find out the reason why they want to do that is because the three of them represent the three tribes. They are, what he calls them, half-bloods, I think, or they have heritage, lineage that connects them to these obliterated tribes. So they have this vendetta that they want, vengeance.
It's so dope.
So dope. So dope. You're right. Absolutely cool. And he is like, no. Okay, yes, I'll do it. And here's how you do it. He's like, here's how you do it. Boom, 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 boom. He just like gives them a plan. He's like, first things first. You go, that dude who we rent out the bottom floor of this place. That dude needs storage. I saw all his crates in the alleyway. He needs to buy it. Boom, making money. Also, there was some. I saw this lady and her kids out in the alley as well. Hire them. Tell them to get in here. Be cooks and runners. Make this place awesome. Get listed on the stock exchange. The merchant tolls. Get listed, be known as that you're into construction and property and transportation. Then buy all these properties that are sinking in the mud, because we know how to flip them.
We're going to flip them when we know how to do it, because Bug, I loved that little nugget earlier. Because and it just makes you wonder, like Tehol, like I love him sort of like turning on the switch and like turning on genius brain and being like, okay, I'm not going to pretend to be this moron. If this is like what we're into, we're going to be into it. But that little seed of Bug being like, of him being like, can you believe they're trying to build this building? So stupid. All that clay is squishing out everywhere. And he's like, I would just drill holes and I put gravel in it and it'd be fine. He's like, until an earthquake comes, he's like, no, it'd be pretty safe in an earthquake too. He's like,
It's like,
seems like a good idea.
Is that how you made that goofy hearth and a thing? He's like, no, I didn't need to do that. It wasn't heavy enough.
Bug's just like also like this genius sewing or crocheting terribly or whatever. And that little seed coming around and him being like, okay, great. I know how to do this now. We're going to do that thing that nobody's able to do. And we're going to, and it's going to get us the dollar bills. Ooh, it's so awesome. I just love it.
So awesome. Yeah. Then the last scene of this chapter, we're back with Saren Pedak. She's talking to Hull, and basically, they have this lovely scene where he's like, I can hear you cry when you sleep. And she's like, yeah, well, I can hear you cry when you sleep. And he's like, I wish I cried when I slept. And he's like, my goal is to start a war. I'm going to cause the Idur to go to war with Lether. And that's, are you on board or are you not? Pretty cool. So everybody's like, already in one single chapter, we're introduced to all this intrigue, all these new characters, all these different machinations. And I'm like, it's so clear. We're on board. We're going. We're at full speed. It's like we just jumped on a moving train.
Yeah.
It's so good.
There's like a lot of cards on the table too.
Yes.
I like that there are like these like political intrigue. Okay, what's with the prince and the queen? What's up with Baruch the Pale? Like there's like these little intriguing things. What's up with the warlock tribe king, the warlock chief or whatever, which we'll get to in a minute. Little moments of intrigue, but a lot of people with sort of their intentions are fairly clear, which I think just makes for a really exciting first couple chapters. I feel very on
the density of ideas is what just blows me away with Erikson. We skipped over it because it's like so minor a thing, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. It almost makes me angry how his like cast off ideas that are just seems so disposable could be their own novel for another author. Like you could build an entire novel around, for example, the thing that we skipped over, which was they used to have this notion that there was a serpent in their spine.
Oh, I love that.
Incredible.
I think I pulled that for one of my sentences just because I was like, what an amazing thought.
It's just a complete throwaway idea where he's like, I'm sure we'll never talk about that again. He's like, oh yeah, they used to think there was a spine that connected to their brain and it was trying to eat them. And as you grow older, it pulls you closer to the ground. It's like, it's genius, utter genius. And it's like, nah, we don't need to ever talk about that again. Anyway, I don't mean to step on your sentences.
Oh, no worries. Incredible. I always feel like nervous. I'm like, is this just, I'm nervous. I want my sentences to like resonate with people, but I do pick the ones that resonate with me. So it feels like really validating to have you just organically call them out.
Oh, that thing was one of those ones where I was like, damn him. He just, what is he? It's this endless fountain of ideas. Anyway, chapter 3, we're back with people we've met before. Troll Sengar, who is on a boat, being led by Hanan Mosag, the Warlock King.
Mm-hmm.
And they're on this boat. They're going to, as Hanan said, we're going to exert our retribution for this, this transgression.
Yeah.
The killing of our seals. We're not going to let that go. He says we're actually going to do something about it.
He says we're going to go unveil the warren.
Yeah, fully unveil it. Yeah. So this is that. They are on the boat. They've got all these warriors. Trolls there. They're rowing away. They get to the Lethari boats. They see them. And all of a sudden, wraiths start swarming the decks, murdering people. And something else is also unleashed from the depths of the water. Something so bad that it literally kills all the sharks, the shark corpses in the water.
They just hear like the screaming. I think that there was like some fog or darkness that is like obscuring their vision. But everybody who's on the boats is basically dropping their oars and covering their ears from like just the horrific sounds that are coming from this brutal, quote unquote, justice that's occurring. Yeah.
It's disturbing to Troll, Sengar. He doesn't know what to do with that information. Then we're back in the POV of Udinas, the slave, who is helping to prepare the corpse, the Benata corpse that was discovered. And there's this very detailed ritual that is described of, clearing out the organs and then heating coins and fusing the coins to the skin to create this shell.
And covering like wax and coins and wax and coins. Very interesting. And like how I feel like that's something that I'm like, I can picture that. But I like that we stuck with him through that scene.
Yeah.
Because of like the length of time and the process and the laboriousness. And it's not like one layer. It's like they make a full encasing of this person of wax and coins and wax and coins. And I really enjoyed being part of that ritual with them.
And I think it drives home this notion that there is a distinction between the Letheri, who prize money above all, and the Idur, who we're going to use our coins to wrap our dead. That's the only thing that coins are useful for. Yes. We don't care about money. We're going to use them to just make a coffin, basically. I thought that was beautiful, and a beautifully illustrated dichotomy.
Yeah.
And the scene itself is really elegantly expressed. As you said, we're there in it. We're seeing the process, and meanwhile, we're hearing this chanting, moaning, wailing of the widows. This and Erikson even kind of gives us an onomatopoeia, this thing that's happening constantly throughout it, that kind of drives it with this.
It's haunting.
Yes, very
even
haunting.
Just reading it felt haunting, and then through the character's name,
Udinas,
him being like it's haunting me, but like as he's like, they've been through this process before and they've never liked that element of it, but even as they're listening to the chanting, the sounds of his own heartbeat and then the double thump that is going in line with the rhythm and feeling basically two heartbeats within himself is a beautiful sort of build up and creepy. And it just, you feel not just like, the ghosts of like the fallen and that mourning feeling, but the ghost of some, like, I guess this dragon that's now within him, or the Wyval that's within him. It's interesting, this sort of wrestling of tensions just within him as a
Wyvals wobble, but they don't fall down. And then Hanan Mosag and the warriors come back, and he's like, why are they triumphant? Why are they so quiet? Why is nobody talking? Oh boy, something terrible happened. I love that foreboding sense of, I don't know what was wrong, but something's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're back with Trull and Fear, who basically report to their parents and the brother what happened. And they're like, so demonic wraiths murdered everything, but wait, that's not the bad part. That's not even the bad part. Then something else came, and you know how we all use Corral Demerlan? I don't think he did. And Troll's like, oh, I'm the last one to get that.
Well, I love that, because it's like, if you are like a super apt reader of these books, you probably knew these demonic rays is that's not normal.
That's not consistent with that Warren.
Trull is is me being
audience surrogate.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I'm the idiot. He's like, no, Mom, Dad, you're not going to believe this. He used a different kind of magic. And they're like,
yeah, we don't.
You caught up. You finally caught up.
You don't need to. We all know.
Everybody's way ahead of you, Trull. Yeah. So, and then there's this creepy insinuation that Hanan Mosag is serving someone else. Yeah. He's like, maybe he's not the master here. Yeah. So I don't know what that's about. So Uruth is like, hey boys, I need you to go to the Stone Bowl. And they're like, the Stone Bowl?
What's that?
And Tomad, their dad, is like, no. We're not going to the Stone Bowl. You're going home right now. And they're like, oh, we're going to the Stone Bowl.
We're definitely going to the Stone Bowl.
We're definitely going to the Stone Bowl.
I don't know what it is, but I know I want to be there.
So they head off in that direction, and then we're back with Udanas, who's having a dream. Pretty complex dream. I'm not going to step through all of it, but basically, a golden lady shows up. Amazing, on a flaming horse, holding a lightning sword.
Skeleton horse, right? A flaming skeleton horse?
Flaming skeleton horse, yes.
Mm.
Yes, very important point. Not just any flaming horse.
Yeah.
Flaming skelly bones. Yeah.
And she is like, the dream is very complicated, and there's like, I'm sure like this is gonna be the thing that later down the line that somebody's gonna copy this in the comments, be like, it was right here.
It was all there, man. He was telling it to you right there.
Well, I'm choosing to let it wash over me.
Yeah.
But she shows up. She basically steps on his chest instantly, and she's like, "There's two beats inside you. Like, what path are you following?" And he's like, And she's like, "Okay, coward." And he's like, "Okay. The Wyvil." And she's like, "That's what I wanted to hear."
Let's get it
I
on.
guess. I wonder if he would have said anything. She would have been like, "Okay, I'll take that." Or if she was like,
it felt like she was going to kill him. She's going to kill him or hump him. That was the two options.
I don't know if she did much humping or if she just forcibly had him hump her.
Yeah, it was you're right. There's whatever the opposite of humping is. It was more of a pull situation.
Yeah. So aggro, but
yeah. Yeah.
If you're into it.
I mean,
it is what it is.
You go, golden lady.
She rides up, skelly horse, gets what she gotta get, and gets out.
Yeah. So, and then the Featherwitch shows up, and Udanas is like, "So I had the weirdest dream, and we're still in it. You're still in it. Are you in it? Is this a dream?"
This is so interesting. Do you think the Featherwitch was actually there, or is that just him pulling?
Well, she doesn't think so, right? The whole time she's like, "You moron. This isn't a dream. This isn't you're hallucinating because you have Wyvil blood."
But then she disappears. Is she in whatever he's in?
Oh, you think he manifested her and it's not even actually her?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm asking.
That's interesting. I don't think I thought that, but it's certainly a possibility.
I don't think thought
he's just hallucinating her.
But the second time around when he's like, the second read through, he goes, "Are you even here?" And then she disappears. Right. And so I don't know.
She dissolves in that dust. Yeah. That's interesting. Maybe he just
is conjuring her because he has such strong feelings for her that she would be the image that would be some voice of something within this experience he's having.
Well, she's the voice of reason through this whole thing. He's like, "You got to use your tiles and divine things." She's like, "I'm not doing that." He's like, "But there's Wyvil poison in my blood, and maybe am I going to turn into a Wyvil?" She's like, "That's not how it works. You're not going to turn into a Wyvil."
Well, I like that he's like, "Use your tiles," and she's like, "Well, I didn't bring my tiles." He's like, "Don't act like you need the tiles," and she's like, "How do you know that?"
Oh yeah, good
point. Which I liked. Yeah,
that was cool. And she basically says the Edur are going to find out that you have a second heart, and they're going to cut it out of you and murder you.
Yeah.
So don't tell anybody about that.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Quite the dream.
Back to Troll, and he starts thinking about all.
Sorry, one last thing. The person in the dream is a specific character. It's daughter Dawn, mother Dawn, daughter Dawn, Menendorus or something.
Yes.
It's like a specific figure. It's not like random lady on a horse. So she's like
Menendor. Yeah.
And because she's like daughter of the light, she's like she's like a butts heads with shadow, which is what they're surrounded by. So there's like a specific. It's not just like, oh, you're like a dragon person, but like something of the light is within you. You're attached to this, which is at odds with the shadow, etc.
And I'm guessing she wanted that seed for some reason. I don't know. We'll find out.
We can only assume.
Yeah.
So she's actually on birth control. Is she just?
she
got a kink.
Yeah, she's like, I want that double heart.
Yeah. Gotta get a backup.
Yeah. So Troll starts. It's getting to be dusk, and he starts thinking about the Idur's weird dusk kink, which is that nobody can have sex during dusk. You can't if you give birth to a baby in dusk, you have to murder it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't marry people at dusk. Can't
talk
at dusk. Dusk is bad. And we kind of get some real interesting information here. He talks to his brother Rulad. Oh no, this is when he's guarding the corpse.
He took first watch of the corpse because spirits might come in the night. It's like kind of a quote unquote superstition, but there are in the past, I guess, like earth spirits that come by and you actually have to fend them off. But it's like it's more of a tradition thing. So he's taken that first watch.
Right. He's guarding the corpse and he sees his brother Rulad going to where Mayan is, his Fear's wife. And he's like, oh, they could be, he's just going to check on her, right? They're not going to actually betray him, right? No, okay. I don't know. And while he's thinking about that, the actual betrayer strolls up. Is like, what's up? Let's just spoil it. It's Silchus, Ruin.
I love this scene in that he's there and he's like, stay away from me, like stay away from this body, you can't have it, betrayer, I can't believe you're here. But he feels like the air being pressed from his lungs, and he's like, the betrayer's like, if you come one step closer, you're gonna die. And he's like being stubborn, and he like takes a step closer and feels like his life going away. And he's like, I guess like cowardice was never a part of your peoples, I guess. Eye roll. And it is like a proximity thing because he just takes a couple steps away and suddenly he can breathe again. Which I just liked as like an interesting dynamic of him being like, don't come closer to me, you will die, was not like a threat. It just seemed like a real thing. That's just a physical thing that will happen to you if you come close to me, which is like just an interesting piece of this moment. But anyway, please.
Really cool. He tells him that, hey, didn't Father Shadow imprison you, betrayer? He's like, yeah, and I'm still imprisoned. I'm still in prison, but I'm allowed to dream. Mother Dark give me the gift of being able to dream. And we basically find out that Father Shadow is Scabandari Bloodeye, and the betrayer is Silchus Ruin, which makes no sense yet to me because Silchus is the one who got betrayed in that first prologue scene. Scabandari stabbed him in the back, and yet Silchus is known as the betrayer.
I mean, to me, that was like, what's the word? History is written by the victors.
I had the same thought. I'm not entirely certain that's the case, but that's my inkling as well.
Yeah.
Is that we're going to find out that it's basically, oh no, he betrayed me and that's why I had to kill him. And then we're going to find out like, oh, you lying Scabandari. But I also think we find out
that's like a nice girl. Oh, you lying Scabandari. Sounds just like a good insult.
Blood-eyed liar. We also find out, isn't Father Shadow dead? Didn't Scabandari die?
We find that out in like the next scene.
Next scene. Udnas wakes up from his dream. He's like, "Oh, I got to repair the nets. I got to get to work. Slaves' work is never done." But he suddenly has this revelation. He's like, "I know why I'm here. I know what darkness has called me to do." And he goes to find the Feather Witch, but he runs into Uruth. And Uruth is like, hey, go prepare cloaks. Rulad, Fear, and Troll are leaving.
Yeah.
All right. So Back to Trull. He's like, oh, Scabandari buried Silchus and imprisoned Brother Light on the moon. And that's why, or he thinks he knows why, the Lethari chose to worship an empty throne. I don't think we know why, but he's putting it together.
Yeah.
All right. So then Fear and Rulad come up and they're like, we're going to the Stone Bowl. We're going. Let's go. Awesome. Head to the Stone Bowl. It's this massive trench in the ground. They got ropes. They're climbing down.
They meet up with Fear. There's one thing I like that's on the like walk over is pretty quickly. Trull can't even help himself. And he's like, so I saw you go to the cemetery last night.
Yeah.
Buddy. And Rulad's like, and he's like, you don't give me flippant answers. You know, that's not a way to respond to like an accusation like this. And he's like, and what do you want me to say? I knew that you and Fear were both tied up. I felt a presence in the darkness. And so I went to go stand watch. Is that a problem for you?
I'm noble.
Yeah.
I protect people.
Honorable.
Like the hottest girl with the sweetest lips.
The hottest girl, sweetest lips, who I've never thought about until she was betrothed to my brother. But now, I mean, all of us always knew.
Yeah.
But then Trull being like, and you have nothing else to ask about that? Fear, maybe? If Fear's like,
Fear, you want to say something about your brother and the lips comment? And he's like, I'm cool.
Well, Fear says, I don't have to when you're around. And that kind of putting you in your place, like, this is not your business. You continue to get in the middle of this.
So good.
To me, it's like Fear, because you see it through Trull's eyes, you assume that whatever her name is, Mayan?
Yeah.
And what's his name? Rulad. Are like, ooh, they'd be flirting with each other and they're like having like a moment, whatever, and that they're both going to be like bad. But Fear's like the trust he has or the non-caring that he has, but it's speaks to like a maturity level about his relationship or like an understanding that Trull can't possibly have. That is, it's just so interesting to have him like stick it to him. Yeah. Because it does seem like Trull's the one protecting people, but protecting somebody who's not asking for you to protect them is like a deeply obnoxious thing. So it's like an interesting little dynamic that I love. That's like I'd say like the key point on that journey that happens.
And Rulad's like, well, what do you want me to do? He's like, stop strutting. He's like, okay, I'll stop strutting. And he smiles. He's like, I'll stop strutting. Yeah. All right. So they climb down into this trench. I love that scene where they like go down ahead of him. It created such tension for me while I was reading it. It was the coolest thing where like they go down in this deep trench and he's just like, well, I guess I'll go last after I just had an argument with my brothers. It was awesome.
Yeah.
They get down there, bones everywhere.
Classic trench. That's a classic trench in this world, full of bones.
Oh yeah. People at least put their bones in the proper receptacle. That's all I'm glad about. There's reptilian bones, which I'm like, ka-ching, chamale.
But they have like a different word for them.
Yes. Well, they call them the Koschan, but I think it's because it's like their people's word for this thing that we already know about.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because they still. I was wondering if it was a different thing or if it was the same thing with a different name because they still call them like Idur and Andy.
Yes, that's true.
And so, anyway, I wasn't sure if it was something. I assumed it was the same thing. I wanted to see if you also thought that.
I think it's the Kachin Chamala.
Okay, great.
But there's also this massive Alent skull, this dragon skull that has a hole in its forehead that looks like someone punched a dragon in the face
with a giant gauntlet. Pachow.
That's the way to go. If you got to fight a dragon, just punch it in the face. It's like a shark. You know, they say if you're ever attacked by a shark, just punch it in the nose. Same thing with a dragon.
Well known that their soft spot never heals.
That's right. But pretty awesome. We also get this really cool tidbit about the magic, the Koschan sorcery, which is like they loose the bindings between things and it makes things float in the air. Incredible.
Yep.
And then there's this amazing revelation about Mother Dark and this curse that basically describes the end of the universe.
Yes. It is, I mean, the very specifics of it, but basically there's like a curse put out that is making, well, there's a couple pieces. I kind of want you to run through it because you'll be better at it. But the pieces I heard are, there's a curse that's basically out there that says light will eventually be fully devoured. Shadow will win. But once shadow fully devours light, there's nothing to create shadows. And so shadow
Right.
will also die.
Yeah, it'll kill itself. I read it like it's a black hole. Like Mother Dark is turned into a black hole. She's swallowing all the light. And once she swallows all the light, there's nothing to cast shadows anymore.
Yeah.
So everything is obliterated.
But then the other piece that I heard was like created a little rift that somebody put themselves inside of that is the thing doing the eating. Is that red rift thing?
Oh, interesting. The what do they call it? Not the scar, not the something like that. Yeah.
Pain.
Interesting. I don't know.
Mourn.
Yeah. The thing that the kids were tossed into at the beginning of Memories of Ice.
I actually meant to like read that more carefully again before we got here, but then I forgot to.
Yeah.
But those are the two sort of pieces I heard. One is like that end of the world curse thing, and the other is that they created something that was like bad that somebody's like sat inside of,
right,
as like the devourer. And my brain said it was mourn, but I don't know.
Interesting. I didn't put that together, but they very well may be. They did it. The Kashan did it on purpose to lock things into this mortality to make everything go extinct.
Yes.
Which is cool because it like has parallels to the real world. If they're dinosaurs, you know, and they went extinct, it's, I don't know. And I feel like it's basically describing the heat death of the universe.
Yeah.
You know, which is something that's real. It's cool that it's kind of got almost like science fiction-y elements now.
Yo, it's just like dinosaurs. They were like, okay, if we're all going to go extinct, well, guess what? My bones are going to turn into oil and you're going to burn it until the whole world burns down.
Right.
It's like the same thing.
We'll have the last laugh. We're fossil fuels!
Hey!
So also we found out that Father Shadow, Scabandari, Blood Eye, pissed off all the elder gods.
Mm-hmm.
And elder god Kilmandaros shattered his skull, is the one who punched him in the face and head. Which if you want to kill a man, might as well get Kilmandaros.
Oh my god.
It's a little on the nose. Kilmandaros. To kill a man. I need to kill a man. Get Kilmandaros.
Killman, duh. Rose.
And Fear thinks that Hanan Mosag's goal is to avenge the death of Father Shadow.
Yeah. They don't know how they know that he's been here. They don't know how he would have gleaned the histories of being here. But they don't know how he's going to do what he wants to do, but they feel like he's out for blood.
Sick. All of this, awesome.
Yeah.
These two chapters into the stratosphere for me. Just soaring, so much fun, incredibly cool.
So much juicy information and like in a way that I do feel like it's not all understandable because of the mystery pieces, but it is all digestible in like a delicious simmering aperitivo.
When all the folks in the community have always been like, well, the books just keep getting better and better, and I have a hard time believing that. But then it's like the writing is so good and so it's like it's everything. Mm-hmm. There's every kind of adventure is happening. It's just the coolest.
Agreed.
Man, I'm just in love with it. So 2 more chapters next week. We do have our favorite sections. I have a couple, I think. I think 2 or 3. Do you want to start?
I do. I am looking for that one. I highlighted a bunch.
Yeah.
But I'm only going to pick a couple.
Okay.
But I am going to pick the one about the sort of the Narek story of the history.
Okay.
So this is Saren. She's thinking about this story as she goes to the obsidian wall. A lifetime in these hard lands stole suppleness from the body. Sorry, I'm a little sick, as people can probably tell. 1 sec. Okay. A lifetime in these hard lands stole suppleness from the body. Bones grew brittle, misshapen with pain. The endless hard rock underfoot soon sent shocks through the spine with each step taken. The Narek, the tribe that before kneeling to the Lethery king, had dwelt in the range's easternmost reach, believed that they were the children of a woman and a serpent, and that the serpent dwelt still within the body, that gently curved spine, the stacked knuckles reaching up to hide its head in the center of the brain. But the mountains despised that serpent, desired only to drag it back to the ground, to return it once more to its belly, slithering in the cracks and coiled beneath rocks. And so, in the course of life, the serpent was made to bow, to bend, and twist.
What an awesome notion.
So cool.
So cool.
So
and you
cool.
could you can see, I've never heard that concept before, but you could totally see how an ancient people would be like, oh, there's a serpent in your spine looks like a snake. Just so cool.
Awesome.
All right. I have a number of them. This is one of my favorites that just feels very like it's describing the here and now. This book was written several years ago, but this basically could describe us now. This is Tehol talking about he's walking through the markets and he's watching people buy things. He says, the down markets opened out onto it from 3 sides. A more decrepit collection of useless items for sale Tehol had yet to see. And the people bought in a frenzy, day after blessed day. Our civilization thrives on stupidity. And it only took a sliver of cleverness to tap that idiot vein and drink deep of the riches. Comforting, if slightly depressing. The way of most grim truths.
That was also one of my favorite sentences.
Oh, did I steal it? I'm sorry.
No, I highlighted
So
so many. Because there's so many like beautiful sentences, but like so many just great captured concepts. Like that's the serpent story, that as like just a description of the market and this like little microcosm of society there. It's great. I really love it. Yeah. I've so many, it's like hard to tell. I have one more that I am going to say, even though it's from that same section of Saren, like touching that rock at the very end. And then I have one more after that.
Okay. I have 2 more too.
Okay, great. So she's touching the obsidian rock. It's warm and she's trying to think about what the shapes are. Who walks in there? Are they the ancestral Idur, as the Hieroth claim? If so, why could they see no more clearly than Saren herself, vague shapes passing to and fro, as lost as those Narek children in their dying villages? She had her own beliefs, and, though unpleasant, she held to them. They are the sentinels of futility, aquators of the absurd, reflections of ourselves forever trapped in aimless repetition, forever indistinct, for that is all we can manage when we look upon ourselves, upon our lives, sensations, memories, and experiences, the fetid soil in which thoughts take root, pale flowers beneath an empty sky. If she could, she would sink into this wall of stone, to walk for eternity among those formless shapes, looking out, perhaps, every now and then, and seeing not stunted trees, moss, lichen, and the occasional passerby. No, seeing only the wind, the ever-howling wind.
It's poetry. It's poetry. Also, did you get the sense in that scene that there's literally like miniature trees that were along the pathway? Because they talk about the stunted trees, and there's like full trees, but they're only go up to their knees.
Oh, I just got the
really
sense
cool.
that they were not very nice trees.
I think they literally say that like knee-high
baby ones.
trees,
Oh,
which is such a
cute.
cool image, like the Lilliputians almost
Yeah.
land. All right, here's I love this sequence. It's a little bit long. The Tistidua rarely displayed much awareness of their slaves, and even less understanding of their ways. It was, of course, the privilege of conquerors to be that way, and the universal fate of the conquered to suffer that disregard. Yet identities persisted on a personal level. Freedom was little more than a tattered net draped over a host of minor, self-imposed bindings. Its stripping away changed little except perhaps the comforting delusion of the ideal. Mind bound to self, self to flesh, flesh to bone. As the errant wills, we are a latticework of cages, and whatever flutters within knows but one freedom, and that is death. The conquerors always assumed that what they conquered was identity, but the truth was, identity could only be killed from within, and even that gesture was but a chimera. Isolation had many children, and disillusion was but one of them. Yet its path was unique, for that path began when identity was left behind.
Ooh, that was
Just
another
so
one of the ones that I'm
good.
not reading. It's so I don't even know like how to express how I feel about these kind of sentences. It's like foundational.
Yeah.
And I feel
Foundational truths.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
it's great. It's great. The last sentence I have is Troll thinking about Roulade as he's walking by to the cemetery and thinking about Mayan, who's over there. She is unknowable, as all women are unknowable, but he isn't. He was too late to the war, and so his belt is bare. He would draw blood another way. Because Roulade must win. In everything, he must win. That is the cliff edge of his life, the narrow strand he himself fashions with every slight observed. Whether it be real or imagined matters not. Every silent moment that to him screams scorn upon the vast emptiness of his achievements. Roulade, everything worth fighting for is gained without fighting. Every struggle is a struggle against doubt. Honor is not a thing to be chased, for it, as with all other forces of life, is in fact impelled, streaking straight for you. The moment of collision is where the truth of you is revealed.
I also marked that section down. It is, I mean, you could describe a certain former president in that way. You know, you could describe a lot of the people that work on the global stage in that way. It is an incredibly perceptive way of describing that narcissism.
I've met that guy. I know that guy. I know that
everything
guy.
is about it. It's everything is a comment on themselves.
Yes.
This section, the last one I'll do, is right before that, and I also think is amazing. Hanan Mosag had proclaimed this the greatest flaw among the Idur. Old men and the dead were the first whisperers of the word vengeance. Old men and the dead stood at the same wall, and while the dead faced it, old men held their backs to it. Beyond that wall was oblivion. They spoke from the end times, and both knew a need to lead the young onto identical paths, if only to give meaning to all they had known and all they had done.
Oh, I love that. It's so... that visual of the dead like facing this oblivion and old men being like, I'm not going over there, is kind of... Yeah, it's...
But they push the young to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Their hubris, their fear, pushes the youth to do the same horrible things and continue the cycle.
Feels resonant.
Feels resonant. Wow. Having so much fun with this novel. Can't wait for next week. Again, we got 2 more chapters.
4
Will be
and
chapters
5.
4 and 5 next week. So hang out with us then. I hope you're reading along. We're having a blast. Remember to send in suggestions for opening topics. And we'll see you then. We'll just have one thing left to do, and that's dance it out.
When the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality, open up those pages. It's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the